This shows how Germany expanded before World War I, and gives us an idea how Turkey also came to be involved because they had occupied Palestine. This shows how Germany is expanding from those early years, now taking in Austria and across to the west, and the German Empire is developing into Prussia. Germany is continuing to expand, and you can see the German eagle as it moves down south, and the idea is to develop German power in Europe, and then also to involve Austria, and then also down to Turkey as well. Now it becomes known as the German Empire, leading up to World War I. So now you see the rapid development of the German Empire, and this was mainly because of the ambitions of the Kaiser. Now there's the movement to the west and then also to the east. So Turkey did not want to come into the war, but you see by a clever trick there she was forced into the war, and now that brought Palestine and the importance of capturing this land, and the reason why Australians were sent on that campaign. Now the film you'll see now shows the development of this railway. Incidentally, this is an official Australian war film taken in 1917, and it was filmed by Captain Frank Hurley, officially for the Australian government and the British War Office. There you'll see the development of that black line. There were pipes already there, and so they were connected up to bring water. Certainly an old-fashioned way of pumping the water, wasn't it? But the camels were glad to get it. This gives you an idea of the camel being known as the ship of the desert, and this was one of the greatest combination of camel power that the world has ever seen. These are troops from Britain, and you'll notice that the development of this campaign in Palestine was almost completely by British Commonwealth troops. This fulfills the Bible prophecy, as we shall see as we go through the film. Seeing that this film was taken in 1917, it's quite clear for those days. Now we have Scotland coming to the fore. If we had sound, we would have heard the bagpipes as well. This gives you an idea of the desert area, how dry it is, and the difficulties that the troops had to fight in such conditions. Here they are cleaning their rifles, no doubt getting rid of a lot of that sand. Well, you can recognise the hats now of the Australians and New Zealanders. Good way to boil the billy. Well, here are some of the famous Indian warriors. This gives you an idea of the railway that was able to supply the Turks with their equipment coming right now down into Palestine. This gives you a clue to it. The enemy will be in black with the artillery. This gives you an idea of the layout of the land. On the immediately left there you'll see Gaza. Beersheba, of course, known as the Well of the Oath back to the times of Abraham, then Syria and Gaza to the left. Now there's the attack on Beersheba to the right, and the moving in of the white standing for the Allied forces to occupy Beersheba. Recognising there the shooting from the artillery. So then after the moving of the artillery, you see the moving in to occupy Beersheba. And there you see the famous Australian light horse moving into position. The Australians here, of course, had thousands of horses, and the 5th Light Horse was especially a remarkable division. Give you an idea of the sandy area around Beersheba, and we were there not so long ago, and Beersheba is still a very sandy area in many places. So you have a naval bombardment now from the sea, and the attack on Gaza. Moving from Syria, now is for Gaza a key position there right on the coast. Now you see the flashes from the artillery of the British forces. Now the infantry move in after the artillery attack, and the guns were quite effective, as you can see there. Troops are moving in now to consolidate their gains. Well, here's an ancient way of supplying troops on the sea. Rather stormy conditions, as you can see too. You wouldn't want to have any tendency for seasickness there, would you? And here's real manpower to ship those big boats to bring supplies. Well, many hands make light work, so here you see quite a contingent to pull these boats ashore. Get ready again, and off they go. Well, here's the ship of the desert, proving their worth of the camels, and what surprising weights they can carry as you see those loads that they are carrying. And when you remember that thousands of camels as you can see them right away in the distance there, bringing up these important supplies. The Arabs had a prophet. There's the water of the Nile. The Arabs had a remarkable prophecy that they thought they'd always hold Palestine, and there's the water of the Nile coming for 200 miles across a desert, brought underneath the Suez Canal and chlorinated at Kantara, and there's the proverb from the Arabs. Allenby is the name for Allenby. General Allenby, by the way, was a Christian general, and he supplied his troops with copies of the New Testament into the Bible to show that it was a crusade for the purpose of liberating the Holy Land. And he brought this before his troops. So here you see the plumed hats of the Australians, and quite windy conditions, aren't they, on those hills? Quite a job to keep those tents in position, and there are the plumed hats. As you can see, it's a famous land of many battles, and here's the troops there. Well, that's a real flood, isn't it? Camels are not used to that so much water. And here they're bringing up the artillery with some of the old-fashioned methods of transport. Now this is a historic occasion when Jerusalem, known as the Holy City, is going to be released. The Turks had held this land for 400 years. This is how it was actually surrendered, and this was reenacted by all who took part. So all that took part in this is Sergeant Hercombe, and all who took part it had reenacted exactly as it happened. The gentleman in the centre there with the long black coat, that's the famous city mayor of Jerusalem, and he's going to surrender the city. This is exactly how it happened. Well, look out, he's got the trigger at the ready. Well, where'd he come from? I think the sergeant's having a job to understand the mayor of Jerusalem. So a report is being sent back to Allenby. Now there's a picture of the city. There are the walls around. There's coming up towards the Mosque of Omar, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This was the only city taken in World War I without bloodshed. Really a miracle in itself. Not a soldier lost his life, not a shell fell within the city. The only city taken in World War I without any damage and without any bloodshed. There's the great walls of Jerusalem. Now here's the historic occasion of the moving in to take the holy city. There you see the Australian troops and others. And there's the fulfilling of the prophecy of Jesus. The Turks had held this land for 400 years and had oppressed it. Now you see the delight and the welcome they're receiving. Well, look out for the shafts. Now there's the flags of rejoicing because this land had been oppressed for 400 years by the Turks. Now they're delighted that the land is being released. Now this is the famous Jaffa Gate, and we were there the year before last to see this very site. The Jaffa Gate is just the same today, and there's General Allenby. See him there? Coming forward, and he's walking in as its deliverer. He's walking in as one who is going to release the city from the oppression of the Turks, being trodden down for 400 years, but now on the eve of deliverance. Here are the troops that helped to deliver the city. This was a great event. There's the foot of the Tower of David. You'll see Allenby on the left there, and he is reading the Declaration of Proclamation. There's Allenby in the dead centre there, and this is the interpreter reading it out in the various languages of Hebrew and of Arabic, as well as English, and there's Allenby in the centre. A Christian general, there he is. Thanksgiving for the deliverance of the city, and thanksgiving that it was done without shot or shell. And he's happy about it, isn't he? Here's another prophecy which was so wonderfully fulfilled. Birds flying, that was the way the prophet Isaiah spoke of the modern planes of those days. And this is the number 14 bomber squadron taking off. Well, that's the old biplane, isn't it? As birds flying, so will the Lord of hosts defend Jerusalem. There's a remarkable prophecy. And one of the pilots here was a well-known Australian. There's the motto which is adopted there, and it reads, "I spread my wings and keep my promise." And this is linked up with the deliverance of Jerusalem. Well, now they're going to cross the River Jordan, and it's quite a task, as you can see. A raft is being prepared because the Turks had blown up the bridges, and so now they're going to draw this raft across for the troops to be able to cross over and to get to Assault and Amman. Now there you see the pontoon bridge that was erected, and now they're crossing over towards Assault and Amman across the Jordan. There you can see Jericho on the left. And the movement of the troops. That's quite a climb up a hill, isn't it? Very happy to get across the River Jordan. And now over to Assault. Now there you are, seeing them occupy Assault and Amman. That was as far as they travelled that side because the Arabs took up the contact then, and Colonel Lawrence led the Arabs up that side of the River Jordan, right up the eastern side, and then the British troops moved up the left. Now that shows you how the arrow there points to the movement on the last big drive by Germany. Now Russia is out of the war. Now this shows you how they built this railway for shifting the heavy equipment. Quite a contrast to the modern way of building a railway, isn't it? Sir Harry Chervell, of course, was a famous Australian. Now that gives you an idea of the Jordan Valley. See that deep ridge there? Well, there's a famous field, Armageddon, and now they're moving in. They're crossing the field of Armageddon. It's only a small field, about 30 miles wide. This gives you an idea of the plain of Armageddon. It's symbolical of the last struggle of Armageddon. Nazareth, famous for the place of the development of Jesus. Now this shows you the Turkish prisoners. They surrendered by the thousand. They realised that the days of occupying the Holy Land were over, and they'd held this land for 400 years. And it was a great deliverance for that land. This gives you an idea of the moving in through this area and how dry and dusty it is. But these troops moved on and they were kept fit and well, and it was a great moment when this land was set free. Now you're moving across the deep valley of the River Jordan again, and so they recross at the top there. There's one man, looks like a streaker, doesn't he? But he's doing a good work in the army. Quite a task crossing the River Jordan there to move and join up with Colonel Lawrence of the Arabs. Gives you an idea of the rugged area they're going to move into, to move to Damascus. This is the Australian Mounted Division, and seeing that this film was taken in 1917, 1918, I think you'll agree with me that it's remarkably clear for those days and those years. That's because it was taken for the British government and Australian government, and particularly by the Australian War Council. Isn't it a magnificent picture of the Australian Light Horse? 4th and 5th Divisions, famous for their horsemanship and their great work. Well, now there's the entry into Damascus. Of course, these places are all in the news today, Damascus and Lebanon and Palestine. And this shows you the entry into Damascus, and a triumphant finish of that area of the campaign. And there you see the troops moving in after moving 120 miles. Now this is a historic occasion. The Arabs had been working up the other side with Colonel Lawrence, and this is where they meet together. The Arabs on the east side of Jordan and the British Commonwealth forces on the west. And here are the famous Arab horsemen, and they meet up with the British and they combine. Here are the Arabs, famous for their horsemanship as well. Now, of course, Colonel Lawrence, known as Aircraftsman Shaw, played a very significant part. Here he is. Now they're combining. Here are the famous Arab horsemen now. They're combining now in the final drive. The Arabs, of course, were very glad to see the end of the Turks, because the Turks had oppressed this land for many years. So they were very glad to take part in the freeing of the land. This gives you an idea of the map. Now you see the arrow pointing where they're going up to Aleppo, and all that light area is where they're captured, and the dark area is what they have to take from Damascus up to Aleppo. So this is another triumphant scene, moving into Aleppo. And so the whole of the land that was promised to Abraham, Isaac and Jacob now comes under the control of the British Commonwealth. Quite hard work for the horses, isn't it? An olden way of bringing up troops and equipment. What a magnificent job those horses did all through that hot area. So this is a historic film showing to you how this land, which was promised to Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, was taken over. This shows to you now how the German eagle moves back, and as Palestine and the Holy Land area is occupied, they're moving right up to Aleppo itself. So now the German eagle retires after all that expansion. Turkey surrenders, Austria-Hungary, and so the return right back to where they started. The cenotaph in London to our glorious dead and those who paid the supreme sacrifice in delivering the Holy Land.